Hey, Alita Army. Welcome to the Alita Livestream of August the 26th, 2022. Could we survive in Alita's world? Where we discuss all things to do with the movie Alita Battle Angel, the source manga Gundam, and the greatly desired sequels. I am your host of Muskogee Creek from Denver, Colorado. And with us, we have Lee, and he's from Fountain, Colorado, which is about, probably 80 miles from my house. So how's it going, Lee?
Oh, not too bad. How about you?
Hey. And we also have Chaos Noah. He's from Mentor, Ohio. How's it going, Chaos?
Pretty well.
Nice. Okay.
I'm going to be here for about a half hour. I'm going to head out. So.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, we're glad you could join us. So anyway, we're gonna do it a little bit different today. We're gonna, kind of look at Alita's world in terms of the kind of culture, what kind of amenities are offered to the citizenry and that kind of stuff. And then, of course, would we even be able to recognize a lot of it, which I think we would. But we'll get to that when we get to it. So anyway, that's the main topic, I guess. But before we get to that, just want to make sure everybody knows that we have a fundraiser going on right now because we want to put an ad in the LA Times. And what you see there on the left, that long, skinny looking picture, that is the actual, that's kind of where we are now with the ad in terms of what it's going to look like in the LA Times itself. And we're pretty excited about it. Actually, Charlie Smith, Vladi, and I have been working on this, and it's looking pretty good, I think. So we want to keep Alita's, we want to keep her current, and this ad we're shooting for it to come out on, of course, September the 9th, because that's 9/9. That's Alita Day, and certainly on the Alita live stream we're going to have a special. I think we're just going to do a watch party on that day. But anyway, that's what the ad's going to look like. Now, you might say, wow, that looks pretty long and skinny. Well, that's the actual format that the LA Times requires is 4.9 inches by 10.5 inches. So it's pretty skinny, as you can see. Now, what you see on the right-hand side there is the GoFundMe that I set up for us to actually get the funds necessary to get the ad in the paper itself. And I am personally working with one of the guys that works for the LA Times. Actually, I think he's kind of a big wig there, I think. And we've communicated back and forth on email a couple of times. So we're going to get there. He's waiting for approval from his management for that. I don't see there's any problem in that. If we're going to give them money, of course, they're going to want to run the ad. So I don't see an issue there. So anyway, if you have not contributed to that GoFundMe effort that you see there, and I tweet that out, probably every day I put at least one tweet on it. I even put it on Facebook. And, get on there. No amount is too small. And, we will definitely get that ad in the paper and keep our girl current. Any thoughts, Lee or Chaos?
I was just going to ask if you figured out how to do the community post function yet. I'll check. But I made sure to repost it myself. I did a little post with a snapshot.
Yeah.
And did the little shout out with the at function for you to mention you as well.
Yeah, I actually added your YouTube user handle, I guess it was, to the community tab on my channel, so you'll probably see that.
All right, I'll take a look.
All right. Yeah.
I'll post there if I get the time. All right.
All right. Cool. And Lee, any thoughts
on the ad? Well, it's not really something I'm familiar with, so I don't really have anything to add, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I kind of liked the one there that you see that we're using for the GoFundMe. The only problem with that one is that it's not the dimensions that the LA Times wants, but I really liked it on the right there because it's got the 9/9 on it, you know, for September the 9th. So, but it works pretty well for the GoFundMe, and I think Blotty's going to write up a little bit of a description for that too. So that'll, you know, for the GoFundMe page. So, you know, hopefully we're gonna get some more in there. We're not in any we're in no desperation for the money. You know,
well, the one you've got looks pretty good to me. So
yeah, well, they both look pretty cool. You know, I like the one on the left. I had done a couple of versions of the one on the left, and I like the one there. I forget who did that one. I guess we give them credit in the upper left corner there, but I like that ad a lot. I like that graphic with the text in it a lot better than I like the two I did. And I really like the fact that we got that QR code there too, because you know, a lot of folks can go right to the website, you know, and you know, see about the Alita Army and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be real good. And the main thing about this whole thing is that I wrote a letter to Rose's agent and told him what we were doing, you know, that we were putting an ad in the LA Times that was going to come out, and for them to kind of keep their eyes open for it. You know, now I don't expect to hear anything from them, you know, but at least we've told them, here it comes, you know, buckle up, you know. So, you know, we want Disney to see this. We want them to see that the Alita Army is serious about wanting a sequel and a series and anything else we can get out of this, you know, because we want our girl to you know, to get her just, you know, acknowledgments and stuff like that. You know, we want her to get back out there. So that's where we are with this right now. So I sent the letter a couple of days ago, actually. So it's they may have it by now, as a matter of fact. And you know, we'll see how it plays. You know. Okay, so anyway, next on the agenda here, this is the partition. And now one of the things that the ad's going to show is it's going to take people to the petition itself, rather. And we want folks to sign the petition. Now, we've got a lot of signatures on here already. We've actually got more signatures now than the Snyder Cut people got when they got the Snyder Cut version of Justice League. You know, I think they had a little over 170,000. We got 176,000. But we're shooting for 200,000. So anyway, I'm going to be, you know, tweeting that out too for people to go sign that. And I've been putting it up on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram, for that matter, and trying to get people to sign it. So we'll also, if Disney looks at this, and certainly they're tracking this one too, I think. And of course, if they see that ad in the New York Times and they kind of, you know, put their camera on that QR code, they're going to see this is going to come up. This will be part of it. So they're going to see, you know, that there's a demand for an Alita sequel. So hopefully that'll get them off the dime, as they would say. So
yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. In the meantime, I just recommend everyone just keep doing their contributions. And the showcase episode is going to be skipped for this Monday. It'll happen the Monday after this one. So I'll do a premiere so it has some advance notice.
Nice. Yeah, we appreciate that, Chaos. Sure do.
Okay. Well, I get an idea from Guy Nice Day, so I thank him too a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I guess what we want to do is go ahead and get into the topic itself. And, you know, the first thing I would say about could we survive in Alita's world? And, you know, the society itself, including if you would call it this, the governmental structure, if you want to call it, Zolom runs everything on the ground, at least in Iron City. Now, we don't have a feel from the movie, the extent or the reach of their influence, that being Zolom. We don't know that. We know that in the manga that the folks out in the Badlands tried to shoot that big cannon, you know, at Zolom to try to take it down, you know, and I guess Zolom has a defense system, I guess, that actually.
It does. It's similar to the Holtzman field from Dune, where it repels high speed objects on impact, but the repulsion is less for slow moving objects, which they showed in the movie in a way by showing that Alita's team had to try and climb up there and walk through it because trying to bombard it wouldn't quite work.
Yeah.
So they walked through it. I guess as I remember other things, they do a similar effect in the old Star Wars prequel, Phantom Menace, where they try shooting at the big dome, but the dome doesn't penetrate, so they have to walk their army through the dome to get inside.
Yeah, I think Zolom's got something like some kind of electrostatic.
Well, it's based on it is based on the same principle, because obviously the artillery rounds aren't going through it, but you could supposedly, as long as you don't get killed by the various other defense mechanisms, such as the guns or the rings, you can get through the field by walking, because that's slower.
Yeah. But, I guess Zolom actually took out that cannon that was on the rail car, retaliated on that one, I guess. So
they lost it too.
Yeah.
Somebody blew it up.
Yeah. And thanks a lot for this, Hybrid. Yeah, we were really proud of that poster and that ad that we're going to put in the LA Times. We certainly are, and we're kind of still working on it to a degree. Just waiting, or we're waiting for the LA Times to respond to us to say, yeah, we've got approval, go ahead and transfer the money, so that's what we're after at this point. That's all we're waiting on.
And in the meantime, while you're waiting, you can always make mention of the topic. The more volume there is throughout all of YouTube on the topic, the more it will get suggested to someone, the more easily it makes it out of someone's search.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm having a hard time understanding you there, Chaos. There's a lot of background noise. I guess you got your TV on.
Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, I can make it out, but boy, you have to really concentrate. So, no problem. So anyway, Zolom is in control, as you know. And we got some more slides coming up on that kind of, shows the length or how they control the folks in Iron City, and I think there's, if you go back once again to that video that's on YouTube about the Great War, the Fall, it kind of discusses a little bit about how Zolom actually gave the people on the ground some technology that they could use to survive with in return for them being able to work, for Zolom and that sort of thing. So, but Zolom is in charge. They definitely are. And of course, you can see a lot of that in the fact that they got those Centurions stomping around the city, and that kind of thing. And the main thing with them is to protect the factory. Because that's where they get their supplies. They got, I think about 8 supply tubes running up to Zolom that actually keeps them supplied with goods and that kind of thing to help them sustain themselves, So they are definitely running the show, Zolom is. So any thoughts, you guys? Lee, you got any thoughts about that? I noticed that you had put a kind of a message in the chat that you were a particular interest of this because you're writing a story. Are you adding something to your fanfic or what?
Well, the main character in the fanfic is a man who comes from our time and was catapulted into Alita's time through a temporal anomaly.
Ah, that wouldn't be the Creek, would it?
Afraid not, no.
Well, the Creek will be 614 years old when all this happens, so I guess so anyway, that'll be that, I guess.
Gain some experience by then.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, yeah, Zolom, we don't, from the movie, we don't know a lot about what's going on in Zolom. We know that Nova's there. We know that he's someone of importance, but we don't know exactly how important, I couldn't tell when I saw the movie if he was just, say, somebody that was high up in the management structure for all the factories, or if he was the actual ruler of Zolom or whatever. I know in the manga, he is not. He's kind of like a mad scientist, if you want to think of it, and very, kind of evil at times, and maybe not so evil at other times. He helps.
Wasn't he in the manga at least? Wasn't he kicked out of Zolom for?
Yes, he was.
He was.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was definitely kicked out of Zolom, and I think one of the things that when Alita got in the Toon program, from what I remember, that one of her objectives was to find him. So. Is that right, Chaos? Is that what you understand?
That's correct. And not only that, but he no longer, it's just interesting. I will spoil some things if there was a sequel, but it's interesting when he mentioned when they made up that Ito had a child that was genetically imperfect because it's Destiny Nova who has the mutant. He has a child that's a mutant.
Yes. So anyway, be that as it may, whether Nova is in charge or whether he's, just another person up there, maybe somebody that's somewhat high up on the management structure, or if he's just someone in charge of the factories.
He's Kaiser Soze.
Yeah, that's right. We don't really know for sure from the movie. But,
or as Kaiser Soze says, the greatest trick that insert Destiny Nova here would pull was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there's actually several versions of Nova too, isn't there?
Oh, there's clones, but they're not exactly the original guy.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, the idea here is that you do something mostly that Zolom doesn't like. You're in pretty big trouble. Even down on the surface, and they keep real tight control of the people that are in the city. They don't have as much control of the people outside the city, like in the Badlands. And I guess the further away you get from Iron City and Zolom, the less their influence can be felt for sure. So I get the feeling that they're not. It's almost like they're a city state, like in the old Greek times. Where they, it's kind of like that. They don't control the planet.
They're essentially the Acropolis, like the highest part of the city where the ruling government resides.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, like you just have the city against the hill, and at the highest level of that hill on the hillside is where the government assembly and if you're in Sparta, that's where the king is. That's where they reside.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, what do you think? Now, this is going to be an autocracy for sure. And if what is apparent or what seems to be in the movie is true, then if in the movie they're portraying Nova as the ruler of Zolom, then of course it's going to be close to either a monarchy or a dictatorship or something like that. Now, that said, the people on the ground do have some measure of freedom in terms of what they can do in Iron City in terms of going out to buy stuff and that kind of thing. But this is not a democracy. This is definitely more of an autocracy.
Right, but the thing is, even in just about any of the Greek poli, you're actually, in some ways, you're better off being either poor or a, I don't want to sound crude, but in some ways you can be more free as a prostitute than a regular married woman, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to get to some of the jobs that I guess I got it called career opportunities, which you would have in Zolom, and I got a few of them listed, but we're going to have, a few more added to that list. I am so sure, but this is going to be akin to a dictatorship. They're in charge. You don't get to vote for whoever is the leader and that kind of stuff, and when you're living in Iron City, you're there. As Ito said when he was giving Alita the tour of Iron City, is everybody down here works for Zolom, So that kind of tells you what the extent of it is, Now, certainly there are like vendors, which we're going to get to some of this later, but some of the street vendors, like that guy that sold Hugo that chocolate that Alita ate, he doesn't directly work for Zolom, but certainly he's provided he's providing a service and goods, that being the candy that he sells there at that little kiosk, not kiosk, but that little, kind of a maybe little store or something he had set up there. He's selling this to the people that do work for Zolom, So most of them, 90% of them do. Now, we also saw that Hugo doesn't work directly for Zolom, but he is doing some work for Vector. So in a way, he's kind of indirectly working for Zolom. So
yeah, there seemed to be a certain logic in that the majority of the infrastructure for Iron City services Zolom, but there's going to be another subset of infrastructure, if you will, that supports Iron City.
Yeah, that's right.
So you'd have shopkeepers, maybe service personnel that upkeep all the factories and stuff that directly service Zolom itself.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the prefects and the centurions, all of them. Of course, you didn't see any prefects in the movie. I guess that's in the novelization, I guess. But yeah, they're all working for Zolom. So you'll have some folks that work directly for Zolom, and some that are kind of like ancillary, but they're supplying goods and services to the people that work for Zolom. So, any more thoughts about this, guys? Okay. Career opportunities. Well,
if you want to call them that.
That's why I put this in here tongue in cheek, So you got a few options. I mean, you can work directly for Zolom. I know in the manga or in the novelization, there's you see the Deckman there. That's out of the manga, obviously. They say that, hey, if you want, if you're tired of your life the way it is and that kind of thing, become a Deckman and work for Zolom and stuff like that. I guess what they do in the novelization is they put your brain in one of those things, and you're kind of there. Now you're working for Zolom. So I don't know how that works out because they don't go into any detail into it in the novelization. And of course we don't get a lot of detail about what Deckmen do outside of when they're in the, outside of the factory itself, except for the one Deckman, I guess it was helping Alita and, Ito and those folks when they were trying to get up to Zolom, and then Jeru, So, but we don't really know a whole lot about what they do. But there you have it. There's a career opportunity. In terms of working in the factory itself, from what I've gathered, just kind of reading through the manga and of course in the novelization, people go to work for the factory, and the working conditions are really harsh. That people sometimes will get injured working there, and they maybe get their arm taken off or a leg taken off, and of course it gets replaced with some bionic limb or something like that, until they get to the point where most of them is cybernetic, but they keep working, and you can be sure they don't have a health care plan or anything like that in Zolom. You're on your own pretty much, for that one.
Yep.
And it's a pretty harsh, kind of like the working conditions in industrial America back in the late 19th century and early 20th century.
I was just going to say, there was a part in the novelization where Vector shows Hugo.
Yeah.
Some of the factory workers. He's like in a big observation area or something like that, looking down over the factory floor. And the impression was that all the workers are basically cyborgs to some degree, and they're basically treated like cogs in a giant machine, almost literally fitted into the machinery that they work in.
Yeah, and I think... Yeah, that's right. And one of the sayings there, of course, is if you get injured or you're going to die on the job, fall away from the machinery. I think it was one of the things I think was in there. I
think it was something like don't fall on the assembly line.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the things about working and when you mentioned Hugo Lee, one of the things that you certainly get a taste for this in the I guess in the anime to a degree, and then also in the novelization, is that Hugo's father worked in the factory, and he kept, I guess, getting injured or having accidents, and another piece of him they'd have to replace it with a cybernetic, limb or something like that, to the point where he was all cyborg, I guess, and then eventually he dies.
Well, the impression I got was there was a little bit of that, but it was mainly he was just trying to keep up with some of the other coworkers that were more heavily cyborged.
Yeah.
In order to stay competitive on the job, he had to get more and more of himself replaced.
Yeah, that's right. So, and Hugo didn't want that. So he didn't want to go through that process, and he actually was, I guess you could say he was rebellious of that process in the novelization, I guess, and even to a degree in the anime, I think. So,
yeah.
But yeah, not a whole lot going for you there in terms of in Iron City itself. You could work directly for Zolom, or you could be like a vendor, or you could do like that one guy that was playing the guitar. He was on the street and entertaining people, and they gave him money. You see that today, I guess. You go into big cities and people are playing guitar, and you put $1 in there, or $10.
Yeah, I think buskers they call them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, there was another job that I don't know if you listed or not. It was in the manga, one of the side stories they had, the Sonic Finger.
The
guy. Yeah, the guy who is the Sonic Finger, who is that serial killer.
Yeah.
Right.
He actually is working at a job where he basically picks up severed body parts and throws them in a big dumpster that I guess they get disposed of somewhere. All the people that get killed and stuff.
Oh, yeah. And I guess one thing I mentioned, too, is there's also the street doctors. I mean, you could be one of them, or you end up becoming one of their patients involuntarily because you have an accident.
Yeah.
And they basically, they'll fix you up whether you want it or not.
Yeah.
So if you want kids, don't get in a car accident and don't get hit by cars.
Yeah.
Now,
that was another one too, taxi driver.
Yeah, taxi drivers. Is that we have those today, don't we? I mean,
yeah, we do.
I imagine in Iron City they might be a little bit more like the old cyberpunk tabletop RPG combat cab.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have steam cars.
Or if you're fortunate enough to have some education behind you, like Ito does, you can become a cyber doctor, or a regular doctor for that matter, I guess. In the novelization, they speak to having a hospital, and Gerhard was a nurse. So they didn't work directly for Zolom, but they certainly were providing a service to the people that lived in Iron City, which most of them, of course, worked directly for Zolom. So there's that. So you can either be in a support function in Iron City, or a direct line function working, directly for for Zolom itself, or the factory, as they would say. Also, if you did not want to work for the factory, another career opportunity, if you wanted to think of it, was to go work out on a factory farm somewhere. And you can see there, that side of the movie itself, those big, look like probably those machines in today's money would probably cost $1 million or something like that.
I think they also actually, at least in the manga, I think it was, they mentioned some kind of mining settlement towards the outskirts of Zolom-controlled territory, or Tefari's controlled territory.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
There was mining. They had trains. In the film, I didn't really see trains. I saw trucks, but not quite the same thing.
No, we only saw one area of the territory, so it could be, they've got a lot more going on out there than what we saw.
Yeah, that's right.
Perhaps.
And of course, in the movie, we don't even hear about that. But hopefully, when we get that sequel, we'll hear a little bit more about some of these different functions that are going on,
Yep.
Okay, let's see. Mandatory Carry says that machine is actually based on mining machine in the UK. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So, another thing you could do is you could become a jacker. That's what Hugo and Tanji.
There's also the drug smugglers in the manga too.
Yeah, it could be a drug lord.
Yeah.
Only problem is some people kill the dealers, like
Yeah,
Japan.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it could be a hunter warrior.
Yeah, and if you had a bounty, yeah, you could be a hunter warrior, that's for sure. I got that coming up. We're going to call that law enforcement, although I wouldn't call it that specifically, I guess.
I think it's the closest thing they've got. So
Yeah, that's right. So, but yeah, you could be a jacker or you could be a drug lord for sure. I would think that both of those are going to be fraught with risk. I mean, the jacker, if you don't get control of the situation, you're jacking, say, a big, powerful cyborg. You're literally in bodily harm. You're in danger, from those things because, imagine trying to jack somebody like Japan, and you don't take him, you don't paralyze him early on. Maybe you might hit him with something or something, and it doesn't disable him. And now you got to contend with a cyborg, that's probably got 5 times your strength, and you're in big trouble if you do that. So usually these jackers, like we saw in the movie, they're going to work in teams, where they make sure they got a lot of people there that.
and they've got some method of immediately immobilizing the target.
Yeah, that's right. Akin to those, I guess, like those stun. What is it called? Those tasers, I guess, is what they had, similar to that.
I think they call them paralyzers, but yeah, they look like glorified.
Basically, they're cattle prods, but maybe higher, more powerful.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you could be a barista. That's exactly right. Well, yeah, I mean, we saw the one guy there. He had the bar there, the Kansas bar, and of course they had waitresses in there, so, somebody who served the drinks. So for sure. And of course, if you're really fortunate, I don't know how fortunate you'd be, but if you were a cyborg yourself and you were athletic, then who knows? Maybe you could try out for third league and then work your way up the chain, as they would say, until you got into the Champions League, where you could make money that way. But it seems to me that'd be only the very elite would be able to do that in terms of the athletes, as if you want to think of them as that. It's kind of like, it's kind of like today, I mean, when you look at college football and pro football, talking about being elite, only about 3% of all college football players make it in the pros. And when you watch college football on television, you think, wow, that these guys really are good, but when you think about, for every 30 of them, only one of them is going to make it, in the pros. That tells you how elite people are. Yeah. So you got the same thing here with motorball players. Getting into that Champions League is probably extremely hard. You have to have a lot of talent, and you got to have a lot going for you, I would think.
I would imagine you also need a lot of money, considering you have to deal with your own parts, and that's extremely expensive from what I gathered.
Yeah. Yeah, Mandatory Carey says, yeah, the CIA actually has a coffee shop in the lobby. Yeah, they do actually. So that's, and that would be along with one of those, like not a kiosk, it's an actual coffee shop. But that's kind of like that you saw with the guy selling the chocolate, or even the cafe, that person there was, running a restaurant and coffee shop there that
It's a normal thing for a fairly big office building to do that.
Oh yeah, that's not unusual. Now I would bet, I don't recall, it's been so long, if that's a Starbucks or not, Mandatory Carey. Maybe I don't know. So
I do know that in the game Gun Martian Memory, there are places like the Coliseum offices or the Motorball offices where you see like a what is it? A diner, or basically a cafe stand on the way to the entrance. So obviously, I guess patrons and athletes can go eat something in the. I don't know if it's a diner or a cafe. They can go eat something there in a mess hall, or whatnot.
Well, all the vendors, like you see at any sporting event, whether it's baseball, football, or cricket, or rugby, or whatever it is, they're going to have vendors that are selling hot dogs, popcorn, you name it, they're selling it. Yeah, yeah. You're like me, mandatory carry. He says it's been 40 years since he's been there. It's been a while for me, so I don't remember. So anyway, that's just the way it is. But even on military bases, they'll have restaurants or chow halls or whatever on there. So and they'll have even Starbucks and stuff like that on some military bases. So there you have it.
Yeah, all the bases I was at, they had little fast food joints or pizza joints, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly right. So, yeah, you were in the Air Force, weren't you, Lee?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
My first posting was over in England, and I came back here to stateside.
Ah, were you over there anywhere near Duxford or anywhere there, or what?
No, RAF Mildenhall was my posting.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I got a cousin that's he was in the Air Force, and he was stationed at oh gosh, yeah, I think it was Duxford, but might have been Lakenheath. I can't remember now, but
my brother was stationed at Lakenheath.
Oh, cool. Well, small world, huh? So yeah, I think my cousin is still over there too. He's American, but he married an English girl, and I guess they're still there. So anyway, something else, definitely we've talked about this already, but you could run a small cafe or a bar, coffee shop, a small little nook where you'd sell, like they got one guy was selling chocolate, No,
there was also the one place where Alita was eating that, was it a burrito looking thing?
Yeah, I think it was
like a little restaurant or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was a falafel or something like that. Yeah. So I always, the one thing about, you could tell that she didn't have a lot of experience because she let that little dog eat directly off of the burrito. Okay. I appreciate that she loved the little dog, but you don't do that. You tear a piece off and give it to him and you eat the rest. That's kind of the way it works, but anyway, at that point she didn't have any memory. So that's the way it went. But, this is kind of a service industry type thing, kind of like today, I mean, people go into the restaurant business and they serve food to people, and people go into the, into the bar, they'll open a bar or something like the Kansas bar and they'll run that, So there's another career opportunity. Now, I would say working in Zolom, or working in Iron City rather, is going to be, mandatory carry. Depends on how much you love dogs. Yeah, that's right. So I love dogs. They're pretty good, but I would not let the dog eat directly off of what I was eating. That's for sure. But anyway, another story. But yeah, I mean, that a lot of those little side, kind of businesses meant to, and you saw that's in the old West too. The people that made money during the gold rush weren't the people that were discovering the gold. It was the people that were either supplying them or having a business open where they could, like a restaurant or a bar or something like that.
Yeah, the people that were servicing.
Or the entertainers and the vendors. And I think the other one was was real estate. Yeah, that was the other one. People selling the building materials.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So, and another possible career opportunity, of course, and I think Alita kind of dabbled in this herself in the manga, is she was an entertainer, I mean, when she had her apartment, I guess, and they had the Kansas Bar 2, I guess, she would play keyboards and sing, in the Kansas Bar. So that was pretty cool when she had her civilian body at that point, So, yeah, but mandatory carry says he wouldn't let his dog eat his burrito either. Yep. I tell you what I would do, mandatory carry. I definitely would tear off a piece and give it to my dog. I'd do that. There's no problem there. But no, he's not going to take a bite directly off of my burrito, And orange burrito, I'm not sure about that one. I don't think I've ever had an orange burrito. So anyway, that it is what it is, I guess. But I think working here in Iron City is going to be really tough because there is nothing like Social Security, if you want to think of it like that, in the U.S.
Well, the street docs don't do it for nothing. They just don't give you really good crap.
Well,
They give you crappy cybernetics, but
Yeah.
they'll save your life whether you want it or not.
Yeah,
It's
that's
kind of a
well,
sick
that's right.
joke.
Well, that's kind of like healthcare.
Wait,
You're doing-
save your life no matter what, whether you want to or not?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I guess you're right, because like if it's something that doesn't save your life, you could be get a bunch of scars, but still.
Well, what I was talking about too there though is that a lot of folks in developed countries like we have here in say U.S. or Australia or England or Germany or some of these places, you work to a point, then you retire, and then you get X number of dollars because you put money in and stuff like that, every month. But you don't have this in Iron City.
Yeah, I can't see many people being able to retire in old age in Iron City.
Yeah.
Yeah, you basically work until you drop. That's basically the way it works.
And if it's somebody like me on disability, I wouldn't have housing if it weren't for Section 8. So if somebody like me ended up there, I'd be homeless as soon as I got there.
Uh-oh.
How about you join the underground mutant territory? They're their own nation. They're their own tribal nation. You kind of need to get to talk to Chaos because he's the one on good terms with them.
Yeah.
I don't see that going well either.
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean,
yeah, Finestro says you got some opportunities if you can make ice cream and sell oranges and stuff like that, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it's something like that where I kind of want to I want to have children, so maybe they could do some work too when I'm old. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be like I am now. My parents live over in Pennsylvania, and I live in the other state next door. We'd be living together in a situation like that.
Yes, that's right. Well, it would kind of be like, I guess.
That's probably why, in the early 20th century and the late 19th, it was, grandparents, the parents, and the children all in the same house. Because how do you support each other? Huh?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, back during the Gilded Age, I guess. So, yeah, that's, yeah. So, yeah, your best hope for anything like that, in terms of what might even come close to retirement, would be like getting into a group like that, So
that's another problem too. Somebody on disability who may require medication of some sort. Where would they get their medication? Yeah,
that's well, I assume that Doc Ito, as an example, probably could. He could probably.
That's if he even has a supply himself. Unfortunately,
yeah, that's right.
Does what he can, but somebody like him, they're also going to be on a tight budget.
Well, I mean, I know how this goes, but my paternal grandfather ended up moving from where he lived to be, in the next door apartment. Or I guess the next door in a duplex to my uncle, just because it wasn't really practical for him to be alone in New York. So they moved to West Virginia and just lived with them. More support that way.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, hybrid brings up, what about vets? And
I mean, in the manga, Dr. Gonzu, who hung out with Ito a lot, he was a veterinarian, a cyber vet.
Yeah, cyber vet. Yeah, that's right.
In the novelization of the movie, Ito, I think, was actually the one who worked on McTeague's dogs.
Yeah, well, they were cyborgs. So
yeah, but if it's just a regular pet, then yeah, you'd probably have some kind of veterinary service, maybe. Well, depending on how prevalent pets are.
Yeah. Well, Lee, you were mentioning about whether they had the supply or not. One of the problems you have, is that you don't have the supply chain infrastructure that we have today. And it's like you were saying, all of these docs, because I'm pretty sure Doc Ito could work on a human. There's no doubt about that.
Oh yeah.
But does he? And he did. You saw, because the AMUC came in there and kind of was rampaging through his clinic, looking for drugs. So he had stuff, like you say, but it was catch as catch can. If you go there and you need a particular drug, to maybe be treated or something, whether or not he had that drug was a kind of a 50-50 situation, because There was no real supplier, of any kind of pharmaceuticals like we have today. He had to just figure out the best way he could where he could find something like that and scrounge around and stuff like that, Yeah. So it wouldn't be like today. So, for instance, it's kind of like what Chaos was saying a while ago. If you were in an accident here, in Iron City, and probably one of the first things they're going to do is say, okay, his arm is crushed. Let's take his arm off and, give him a cybernetic arm or give him a bionic arm. That's probably whether you want it or not, that's probably what they're going to do, Whereas here, they could treat, your injury at this point. Now, in some cases in Iron City, the technology is far advanced over what we have. The fact that they can put a human brain into a cyborg body, we can't do that today. But I get the real feeling that a lot of the stuff they do is they have just had to kind of scavenge for parts, and they're just really piecemealing things together. And and in some cases they are actually, their technology is kind of like where we were back in the 50s, as an example, in some cases, So I think it's a pretty wide, distribution of different technologies, I think. If you're a cyborg, yeah, maybe you're in pretty good shape, particularly if you know somebody like Doc Ito, but humans, different,
Yeah, that doesn't take into account mental illness, though. I mean, if you get a fully cyborg body and you're suffering from a mental illness of some sort, in all likelihood, you're still suffering from the mental illness. And it's my girlfriend, her youngest son, is on a number of medications to treat a number of mental illnesses he's suffering from, autism among them. I'm also on a couple of different medications as well. And without a supply of those, you could end up in a real bad way.
Yeah, you could. And in Iron City, whether you got them or not is really an iffy situation, I think.
Yeah, there's been people on suffering from mental illness who are on various medications I've heard of who, without those medications, inside of 2 years, they'd have committed suicide. And in some place as harsh as Iron City, I could see that accelerating the problem to greater degrees.
Yeah, that's right.
So it kind of depends on your health status on how well you would do in a place like that.
Yeah, Iron City strikes me as a kind of a town or a city, kind of like what our cities here in the U.S. and probably around the world were back in the late 19th century. They had electric lights and stuff like that. Now, they didn't have computers back then, but but the underlying technology like that is going to be very much way behind where we are today, I think, with the exception of the fact that they got computers and that stuff, and their computers are probably better than ours, but other elements of their technology are going to be inferior to what we have, I would think, so.
Well, I took as an example some of the places like inner city Chicago or Detroit, poverty-ridden areas like that. They've got a high crime rate and people are pretty desperate to find a way to survive.
And in some of these cities, there is an unemployment issue. I mean, it depends which place.
Yes.
So I imagine the environment be more similar to that citywide for Iron City.
Yeah, I think you're on your own in Iron City. I mean, they don't have much of a, well, certainly they don't have any police force,
Yeah.
So you're pretty much at the mercy of criminals in that case, and if a criminal is coming after you, you can't rely on a hunter warrior to protect you, because that's not what they're doing. They're capturing these people and collecting the bounty. They're not.
Or they don't even take, you forget a part where they don't even take a lot of these people alive.
Yeah.
So it's only appropriate for them to take kind of revenge or almost vigilante justice, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Well, there's also a possibility.
I'll be signing off about now, but nice to join for a little bit.
Okay, take care, Chaos.
All righty, Chaos. Yeah, you were saying, Lee?
Well, I was just going to say there's also the possibility that you have neighborhood watch type gangs, maybe
Yeah.
people that band together for protection.
Yeah.
So there is the possibility of that in some places.
Yeah, that's right.
If you've got a good sized family, they could provide some support. But if you're lacking any of that, then yeah, you're up a creek without a paddle.
Yeah,
as it were.
That's exactly right. Or hopefully, if Alita was your friend, then
That's a big if.
Yeah, that's a big if. Yeah, because Iron City is kind of a big city, you know. So she's not going to protect everybody, you know.
Yep.
So anyway, long story short, your career opportunities here are limited compared to what we have today. You don't see too many computer programmers running around there. Now you would probably see that up in Zolom, I think.
Oh,
You know?
scavenger might be a job. Somebody
Yeah.
who goes through the scrap heap or various other garbage-ridden areas to collect useful bits and pieces that can either be sold to a cyberdoc like Ito or to somebody on the motorball circuit.
Yeah, that's right.
But I'd imagine that's pretty limited as well.
Yeah, so salvage would be a big thing you could do there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where you're getting all the hand-me-downs or throwaways from Zolom. But anyway, and some of those are probably still pretty good, you know, as compared to what they have in Iron City. So
yeah, there was one of the more poverty-stricken areas around the Middle East that I heard of. They did a documentary. There was a brother and sister that were trying to survive. Their parents had gotten killed. And the brother was refurbishing shoes and selling them.
wow.
And was at least able to make enough money for him and his sister to live off of. Wasn't a lot, but it was enough to keep them fed.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of little things that you can do if you are able to find some way to get it to work.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of luck, I think, involved in some of that stuff.
But there's certainly no social safety net if you have some sort of a challenge that, you know, physically or something like that, and you're unable to work or something like that. You're in pretty deep kimchi, as they would say, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah, when I was at my worst, there was a doctor that told me that if I hadn't had the help I had from friends and family in the area, I probably would have been dead inside 2 years.
Whoa. Well, Lee, we're happy you made it.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot better these days, but there was a point
That's
where
good.
things got pretty bad. But
Yeah.
like the character in my story, he is also a disabled veteran who relied on medication to keep his condition under control.
Damn it! I gotta read your story, Lee. I gotta read that thing.
Well, at some point.
Yeah, I will.
But he gets catapulted forward in time, 600, 500, 600 years, something like that. And he only has the medication he was carrying on him at the time when he ends up in the jungle outside Iron City. So he ends up running out of medication. His anxiety attacks and stuff like that and depression worsens to the point where it starts to affect his ability to perform his job. And at that point, if it had continued in that fashion, then he probably would have ended up unemployed, then homeless, and very possibly dead shortly after that.
Yeah, Finestro. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just kidding. But as it turns out, the story took a different turn, and he ended up in a both better and worse situation.
Yeah, that's the way it goes always, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, Finestro says he didn't remember seeing any animals. You know, I guess that was certainly in the movie, that little stray dog, and I don't know if you could call them animals, but McTeague had like 4 dogs. You know.
Oh, there was also mention of a bird that Alita saw flying out in the Badlands too. So
yeah,
more than likely, a lot of the wildlife is still out there to some degree. You just don't see it around the busy city areas and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Well, for one of the things about birds. In the novelization, Ito tells Alita that there are no free birds in the city because Zolom's defense system would shoot them down, you know.
Oh, yeah. Anything flying would definitely be right out.
Yeah, that's right. So, but yeah, I think you're right, Lee, to answer Finestro's question there. There's probably plenty of wildlife out in the Badlands and even further out. You know, away from Iron City, there's probably plenty, you know, but
Well, even in the city, you're still going to have rat populations, stuff like
Yeah,
that. Because they have
rats
that in, I think, the manga and the anime.
Yeah.
Alita ends up sitting down with some homeless guys, and they offer
Yeah.
her a fried rat.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the look on her face too when she saw it. What, do you want me to eat that? Yeah.
So, that's nice of you, but I'll pass.
Yeah. Hybrid's paying you a compliment there, Lee. Says
Well.
very, very courageous for you to, tell us about that.
Well, a lot of that being open about it is just I've lived with it for like 40 years now. So it's just sort of like a part of my life. To me, it's no big deal. It's just that's the way it is.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly glad you made it, Lee.
No, me and my girlfriend are also glad.
Yeah.
Actually, she's been a big help on that too.
Oh, that's cool.
I've known her for close to 30 years now.
Wow.
We've only been dating for the last like 4 or 5.
Wow, she sounds like a keeper, Lee.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, anyway, that's it for the career opportunities. Let's talk about housing. And you can say,
I think if you can keep it and keep other people out of it, then you've got a house.
Yeah, that's right. That apartment of Hugo's, I see that when Alita was in the window and comes in there, and I'm seeing all the junk he's got scattered around there, and I was thinking in my mind, now this is for me and my generation, my thought was, God, what woman would want to put up with a guy that was this messy?
More than likely, he's probably got one of the nicer places in Iron City.
Probably,
the income he was able to generate with his jacking.
Yeah, he was actually one of the more well-to-do people, wasn't he, in Iron City? He certainly was.
I mean, he did tend to save a lot of it because he had that goal he was working towards. But I imagine he had at least a fairly decent place considering what is usually out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you see some of the shanties and stuff that they had that looked like they were just sort of cobbled together and sort of ramshackle. And I can imagine there being much worse places to live.
And when you think about it too, now for you to have a city that's located 2 miles up and, it's tethered to a city in geosynchronous orbit, you have to be near the equator for this. Mm-hmm. And the problem is in Iron City, I bet there's not too many of these places that have air conditioning. So, I am so sure that Vector's place has air conditioning.
Oh, I'm sure Vector had all the amenities.
Yeah, that's right. But you see some of those, what you see there in the city itself, most of the windows look like they're blown out. And
this one place here to the left that's close up there. That place would probably have no air conditioning. Fortunately, I don't think they would need any heating considering the environment they're living in and the part of the world that they're situated at.
Yeah.
But there'd be no ventilation really. Well, actually, ventilation probably wouldn't be a problem. There's no windows. So. But air conditioning they wouldn't have. There probably wouldn't be much in the way of weatherproofing. So there'd probably be a lot of leaks when it rained.
Yeah.
So mold could end up being a problem.
Yeah, that's right. And you see that place you're talking about. I guess you're talking about the one that's got the little orangish wall there. I think that's actually Hugo's place, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. If you look at when Alita was, in the window and she gets down off the window and is walking in there, it looks like the window was segmented like that. Now, I could be wrong, but that was...
you never really get a visual of it from the outside, so it could be, yeah.
Yeah. So, and you can see, if that's the case, you can see just looking at that does look like one of the better abodes, as they would say, compared to some of the others around there, I mean, some of the stuff looks like, some of it looks pretty ancient, really. I mean, it could be buildings that were up there back.
Well, considering how old the city is, I think a lot of them probably are pretty ancient. They've just been repaired and repatched over and over again.
Yeah, that's right. And they're doing that with what they can scrounge up or salvage. So, pretty tough living conditions getting a house. And you can be sure that
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say there may actually be apartments that you can actually rent, because if you've got a organization of some sort, like a gang maybe or whatever, that gets together to try and protect each other's properties, and maybe you've got some kind of enforcement of, rules, at least within a certain area.
Yeah.
So you might be able to keep a area where you've got some kind of rent that can be enforced, so you get payment from tenants and whatnot.
Yeah, well, you can be sure they're landlords. You can be sure of that. But yeah, it's.
I imagine there's also probably some abandoned buildings, though, that people just squat in.
Yeah, that's right. Matter of fact, to me, it looks like most of those buildings are abandoned. What it looks like to me, Oh, Finestro brings up a good point here that they have really modern weapon systems, but not really any modern houses.
That's the thing. The modern weapon systems are all factory controlled.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
all the really good stuff, that's all part of the factory, which is controlled by Zolom.
Yeah, that's right. So
also, I imagine if you do happen to have good equipment and stuff like that, whether it be vehicles, weapons, cybernetics, whatever, you're probably somebody who is in the upper echelons of society. So you're not going to be one of the average people running around.
By the way, folks, go ahead, Lee.
Oh, I was going to say, for instance, the one, I guess you could call her a crime lord, although I'm not sure if she really is, but she is mentioned, I think, in the prequel novel to the movie novelization, and also in Maxie's story, the Duchess, I think they call her.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she's part of the factory elite, as it were, but she's definitely one of the wealthier types and very powerful, from what I gathered.
Yeah, and she is a crime lord, isn't she? So
I kind of gathered she was at the very least involved in some rather shady dealings.
Yeah, I think so. By the way, if anybody wants to jump on the stream with Lee and I and talk to us about this, you're more than welcome to jump on. So there's the link. All you got to do is click on it.
Yeah. Oh, Hybrid was pointing out that the Ready Player One novel, the living conditions they had there,
very similar to here, isn't it?
Yeah. There's any number of futuristic dystopian stories, whether novelizations or movies or whatnot. Yeah. Or what was it? That one that Dark Angel, a TV series that was set in a fairly dystopian time. I think the main character and her roommate basically were living in an area they weren't really supposed to be living in, but because the cops were on the take, they were able to bribe the cop who patrolled the area to turn a blind eye to them living there.
Yeah.
And yeah, the factory is basically Zolom's control of Iron City.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's kind of the government, isn't it? I mean,
that seemed to be pretty much the government of Iron City, was the factory, which was in turn run by the government of Zolom.
And of course, Zolom actually runs the farms too.
Those are factory run.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, you can see that now. In terms of these look like to me that they're all apartments, and we talked about Hugo's apartment, and I know in the manga, Alita actually ends up getting an apartment also. So, and from what I gathered in her apartment was one of the better apartments too, although it was kind of junky from what I remember, but I guess that's just the way things were there, in Iron City.
Yeah.
She probably,
another thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it also might depend a little bit on how handy you were with tools and how lucky you were finding materials. You could probably fix up an area you were living in to, be a little bit better. And if you fixed up another one, you might even, and you were able to keep control of it, you could probably have it, as something you could rent to somebody else.
Yeah. Well, you certainly wouldn't have to worry about, say, the bank repossessing your house, your home, or say
you might have to worry about gangs moving in and taking possession of your house. However,
yeah, So, there wouldn't be a homeowners association you'd have to worry about. So, in this thing. So, very rough. Now, could any of us survive in this? I think probably some of us could.
Yeah, I
you'd
think that the average person today probably, especially someone who's used to city life, would probably be able to transition over into, life in Iron City. It wouldn't be easy, but I think they could do it.
They could do it, but the only problem they would have is, like you were saying, that they probably would be used to living in a city like this. Even when in a crappy place, they could probably adapt.
Mm-hmm.
But they got the problem then of gangs taking over there, and could they fight them off? The average person lives in the city here in the U.S. I don't think is going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're someone who is, say, ex-military, or you were a policeman, or you had some other special training and you had weapons and stuff like that, then maybe you could hang on to your apartment, but just the average Joe Blow that's maybe they're an actuary, they work for a bank or something like that, which is something else you wouldn't see in Iron City. I don't know too many banks.
Oh yeah, like an office worker or something like that.
They're not going to be able to handle this, I think. They could. If they were left alone, they probably could. But my feeling is as competitive as it is there in Iron City, and as harsh as the conditions are, seems to me that everybody that had a place there is going to at some point have to defend it, Yeah. And some folks are not going to be able to do that, So particularly with gangs, they're going to, in Iron City, they'd probably be on the lookout for, as they would say, the weak link, and if they saw someone was not particularly, maybe not, how would you say, not well built or not stout or whatever you want to call it.
Somebody who looked like an easy target.
Yeah, then they would probably go right. They'd follow them and figure out where they lived and take over. That's probably what would happen. And of course, you don't have a gun here.
Nope.
So guns are outlawed. So you're going to have something like a sword or a spear, or something like that, or a baseball bat. That maybe you've got that. Or say a cricket bat. Where you can beat them off, maybe. But you get six or eight guys after you. That's going to be pretty tough, So
mandatory carry's got to go. Take care.
Yeah, we'll see you, mandatory carry. Thanks for joining us, man. Yeah. And he says, keep fighting. Yes, we will.
Absolutely.
We want that sequel.
And Finn, I believe that there are mostly poor people in Iron City. There are some rich. I mean, even the manga, they showed off a couple people that were very well off, had their own hired security, stuff like that. So there are a few wealthier types that have, better living conditions because they got more money and power to throw around. But the average person seems to be just an average Joe going around working and trying to survive.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the things you also got to remember about this particular society here, this is a post, how would you say, a post-interplanetary war type society. So it's not like wars on Earth. An interplanetary war is probably going to be even more destructive, And so it's not that these people that are living here are losers. They're not that. Matter of fact, they're far from being losers, because the ones that are surviving are very, very tough. They're very
resourceful.
That's exactly right. So they're not weaklings, but the problem is what they've been given to deal with here. A post-apocalyptic or a post-interplanetary war type society, that is going to be extremely harsh, I think. So
that was something else I just thought of. Oh, hold on a sec. Excuse me.
That's all
right. In my story, I actually addressed it briefly. Toxins in the environment from the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, that can be something that can make people sicken and also shorten our lifespan.
Yep. Well, even out in the Badlands, if you remember in the novelization, I think that Tanji told Alita one time that people that lived way out in the Badlands were mutants because they were exposed to radiation and other, harmful.
Yeah, there was indications that there was remnants of the plague and the other weapons of mass destruction that Mars used on Earth.
Yeah.
It was still affecting various types of life out there. It could also be that there might be rumors and stories that are exaggerating some of that. So you might actually have small settlements or villages that are, far out there where people settled and are actually surviving.
Yeah.
But there might be others that are, maybe sort of the hills have eyes-esque type thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is, and to think of this society here and everybody on Earth, this is 300 years after an interplanetary war, and they're still suffering. Think about the destructive capability or the destruction that was wrought on both planets, on Earth and Mars, during this war.
Well, that's the thing. One of the things I gathered is a lot of this condition is kept this way by Zolom to make sure that they have effectively a captive workforce that's forced to serve them. So they're not allowed necessarily to get much better. They keep all the really good technology for themselves. They keep all the good supplies and resources for themselves, and they don't allow Iron City to get beyond a certain level.
Yeah, that's right. So you certainly don't have a middle class in Iron City, or if you do, it's a very thin one.
Yeah.
So, it's not very much to it. I've always thought, though, that if Iron City was to really unite in such a way, in a very strong way, and just stop supplying Zolom, they could starve them out, and force them, to give them a little bit more. But, that's just a thought I had. We don't know the underlying controls that they have on the population there,
Well, if they did, I imagine it would be something like the coal miner wars back in the old U.S. around the turn of the century.
Yeah.
They actually had the gangs of thugs that were hired by the coal companies and whatnot, that when the miners tried to go on strike and get better working conditions, they actually went out and they murdered some of the strikers.
Well,
I remember there were stories even of entire families that got just destroyed because they were just trying to strike fear into the rest of them to get the rest of them to go back to work.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like at the steel mill too, back at the turn of the 20s.
Oh yeah, any of the large industries that were making a lot of money and had very wealthy owners.
Yeah.
Anytime the workers tried to strike for better conditions, for a while there at least, they ended up getting stomped on.
Yeah, that's right. Because I remember there was a kind of a massacre, at a steel plant, and I can't remember exact date, but they hired, I guess you could call them mercenaries. I'm not sure, but they hired these people to go in and take control. And of course, what happened was they started shooting at them, and that it just turned into
Oh yeah, there was I think more than one incidence of that. The biggest one I think was in the Appalachians, in the mining towns they had out there. They had a big war basically that the miners and their families that were basically slowly dying because of the working conditions, and they decided to force the company to make things better. Well, they brought in the U.S. military, and the U.S. military actually fired on the people striking. And because the people that were striking were also armed, they had this big shooting war that's flared up briefly up there. So that's probably the kind of thing you'd have to deal with. So you'd have to have people desperate enough and willing to put their lives on the line for that.
So anyway, housing isn't what it is today. You don't put a down payment on a house and get a mortgage and just start living happily ever after. That does not work.
Finn brought up something. If some of the soldiers survive secretly somewhere out in the Badlands, and got together and started, actually in the movie, maybe that's one of the ways that the Barjack starts up, if they get the sequel going. Maybe something like that happens.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That'd be cool for Alita to discover some other soldiers, wouldn't it? That would be.
It would also make for an interesting encounter if she's working for Zolom trying to stop the barjack, and she encounters another soldier who's running the barjack.
Yeah.
Be a bit of a conflict there.
Yeah. Not now. What? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so enough on the housing, I guess. And now, of course, this is a picture of today's grocery store.
Yeah, this is a very well stocked, well put together.
This is not going to be something you're going to see in Iron City. There are certainly probably some what you might call like bodegas, or some small, kind of mom and pop type stores that maybe
general store types from the Wild West is one of the things that kind of came to mind for me. Just little family run stores that try to sell a small variety of things that people would need in the city.
Yeah, because you would know that Zolom, they can't take all of the supplies, because if they do, they're going to run out of people, because people starve to death, and they won't.
Yeah, they have to keep Iron City supplied and fed because they need their workforce down there.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, you wouldn't see something like, say, Kroger, or or if in down south, Winn-Dixie or something like that.
Yeah, probably not large store chains or anything.
Yeah,
like that.
you're not going to see anything like that. But what you would see is, like you were saying, Lee, is you would see some general stores that were getting some kind of how would you say, some kind of allotment of different supplies every month, from the factory farms and that sort of things, where people could come in and buy, food to survive on. And they would only get a percentage of it, or a small take of it. Probably Zolom gets like, 2/3 to 3/4 of all the food, perhaps, or maybe not that much, but they certainly going to get the majority of all the food, and they're going to get the best food,
Oh yeah.
But some things like, like that one guy that gave Ito those oranges as an example, and of course that other guy that had that chocolate stand, he had to get it from somewhere,
Yeah.
So they probably have like those kind of small.
Yeah, imagine there's surplus from the factory farms that's provided to the maybe some sort of distributor in Iron City, who then sells it out to the various small shops and things.
Yeah, that's right. And I know, and like there are some cafes, like the cafe where Hugo's team, kind of, where they kind of they hang out there,
Yeah.
They have to get food, to give the people, they're going to order, at the restaurant, they have to give them something to eat, So you're right. They probably get what's, like you say, the surplus, or what's left over, or something like that, to survive on,
Yeah.
But you can be sure there's no caviar around there or stuff like that, They're not going to get any really high-end type food, in Iron City. They're going to get just the basics, potatoes maybe, and I think Ito was, from what I remember when he gave Alita, looked like she had some chicken on there, and it was probably some broccoli, maybe some beans and stuff like that. It looked like some potatoes on her plate, that was in front of her.
Yeah.
And so, he had to get that from somewhere, so he probably got it from, like you say, one of those little general stores or little bodega or something.
Yeah, a lot of the infrastructure like that, I usually think of the Wild West a bit more, where, somebody finds out that something needs to be provided to the community. And so they find a way to get themselves supplied with what's needed and then provide that service to the community.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there's all kinds of things that could be cropping up. And it also probably depends on the district and the city as well. Some areas might have a higher demand for certain things.
One thing Finestro brings up is, what about, you got to store this food. So, yeah, some of this food you're going to have to refrigerate. Now what?
Well, I would also imagine that there might be certain methods of, preserving food that might get handed down through the families.
Yeah.
Like canning and stuff like that, because if there is a shortage of, basic refrigeration and stuff like that, people are going to have to preserve the food in some fashion then. And that could be either drying it out and dehydrating it or canning it in some way.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, that kind of those kind of methods for food presentation are this fraught with problems itself. In that you get a lot of bacteria and stuff like that in there. So just ripe for an E. coli breakout or something like that. So yeah, you can be sure they don't have a Food and Drug Administration to kind of oversee this to make sure people are getting getting safe food. That's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, but I don't recall seeing any grocery stores in Iron City.
Well, that could also be because of the haphazard way a lot of stuff is set up there. They don't look on the outside like a grocery store like we would think of it.
Yeah,
like
that's
maybe
right.
somebody sets up in an old office building or something like that and turns it into some sort of, clothing or food store.
Which a person today living there would have to become familiar,
Yeah, there'd be a lot of learning
stuff.
the layout of the land and trying to figure out how people are doing things, because there's going to be a lot of jury rigging, as it were, of the infrastructure.
Yeah, Finestro brings up alcohol is kind of common. Yeah.
Alcohol is normal anywhere there are human beings.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, that's one of the that goes way back. So people have had alcohol around for thousands of years.
Yes, that's right. Even back in the Middle Ages, I guess in England they had that mead, which was
well, back in the ancient days around Egypt and whatnot, ancient Egypt, they had wineries and whatnot, vineyards and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, so the grocery stores, and to your point too about an old office building or whatever, that's what Ito was dealing with, in that his office, his clinic was actually in an abandoned casino. So you wouldn't know, I guess, except he did have his shingle hanging out there. But if you didn't see that shingle, you wouldn't know that was a place where a doctor was.
That could be another job too. Somebody who's a sign maker, making a big flashy sign so people could actually tell where your shop is.
Yep, that's right. So yeah, any kind of food oriented type of business, kind of like Ivor's bringing out here, would be because people have got to eat. So yeah, you could make money doing that, I think. So
so a wide variety of stuff was available, because they had like he's saying, that falafel burrito looking thing that Alita was eating in the beginning. I mean, it had a wide variety of stuff on it. So
yeah. And to your point, it's very much like Iron City is very much like the Old West, isn't it? I mean,
I kind of thought, for me, it was kind of like because of the lawlessness of it and people having to basically try to carve out their own justice system.
Yeah.
To go along with what little of a draconian justice system or legal system that the factory was providing. Yeah. It was a bit of the Wild West and maybe some of the inner cities of like New York, Detroit, and Chicago.
Yeah. One thing that people don't realize too about the Wild West in the United States back in the day, back in the 19th century, is that the murder rate, is an example, in Tombstone, Arizona, which is where the gunfight at the OK Corral was, the murder rate in Tombstone was actually far less than the murder rate in New York City.
There's actually a really good example of that in modern times. I saw a documentary some years ago about a town here in the United States. I think it's in the Southwest. There are actually no laws applicable to that town. The people within the boundaries of that town, are legally allowed to do whatever they want. And it has the lowest crime rate of just about anywhere on the United States, because when somebody you're screwing with can quite easily kill you legally with no repercussions, you tend to be very polite to each other.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's kind of like Iron City, isn't it?
That's one of the things that kind of struck me. Yeah. I mean, there was one man, I can't remember the guy's name, Chris Hedges, I think his name is. He works a lot in really bad prison systems, trying to teach and help improve the lives of the inmates there so they can try to reintegrate back into society when they get out. Mm-hmm. And he said, it's not nearly as violent inside as a lot of people think. I mean, when it does get violent, it gets really badly violent.
Mm-hmm.
But people tend to be overly polite because they don't want to set the other people off.
Astro, yeah, all become vegetarians. That's pretty good, Finn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course, I guess Hybrid says, yeah, that'd be a low crime rate if everybody. Well, I don't think he's referring to vegetarians there, but anyway.
Yeah, if nothing's a crime, then there's no crime rate.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, you wonder, and I guess if that's nothing's a crime, then I guess there's no murder, even if there's a bunch of people being killed. So
Yeah.
you just don't know, you know.
Well, that's the thing. In the movie, Zapan did mention that murder did bring down a fairly good bounty on somebody.
Yeah, it kind of gave you the idea that there's not that many murders, is there?
Or at the very least, it is one of those things that is treated harshly, I guess, because it does make a certain sense. Zolom would not want their slaves killing each other.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, there has to be a certain standard of living to allow people to have some kind of life, because if they don't, things will just degrade to the point where the factory won't have the workers they need to support Zolom.
Yeah, and in Iron City, you don't see any Walmarts or Kmarts or Targets.
Nope. Yeah, like I said, no large chain stores or anything like that.
Exactly. Okay, and we were just talking about this too. It is a lawless society. Now, this is, of course, with a qualifier. It's kind of like you were saying that some crimes, I guess you would call them, committed. It's kind of like you were saying where Zapan, said that, hey, murder brings a tight little bounty, One of the things I had always thought when I saw the movie the first time, and, or after I'd seen it a couple of times, and I realized what Zapan said there, it kind of made me wonder, okay, if murder brings a tidy little bounty, why didn't he go after Nisiana, Romo, and Gruishka,
They may have been beneath his notice, or it could be he wasn't able to track them down for whatever reason. Because that's the thing. You're only going to get a bounty marker put out on you or have the bounty marker collected if they can catch you.
Yeah. And of course, Ito did say that Gruishka didn't have a bounty on him. Now, Nisiana.
He was a special case, but Nisiana and
Romo.
What the hell's Romo?
Yeah.
They were associates of Gruishka, so they might have been protected sort of, secondarily.
Yeah. And I know in the novelization, and we saw in the movie how Nisiana's her bounty was 20,000 credits. And in the novelization, it said Romo's bounty was 14,000 credits, and he would have been outraged to know that her bounty was higher than his. So, yeah. But anyway, to me, I kind of wonder why he wouldn't go after Nisiana or Romo. Now, it could be, too, it's like, he's Zapan's a professional, and professionals, they're going to balance the risk with the reward. And someone like Nisiana or even Romo, for that matter, that's going to be a challenge even for him to take them down.
And if he's aware of the fact that they're working with Gruishka, then that's probably going to be a bounty he's going to stay away from because he doesn't want to mess with them. Yeah, I mean, if you want to be a successful bounty hunter, you want to be very careful of the targets you go after because you want a higher reward for the risk you're going to be going up against. Yeah,
that's right. But that, certainly they murdered, what was it, 6 or 8 women, I think. So
something like that, about half a dozen at least.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think the guy on the right's called Romo.
Yeah, that's Romo Finestro. That's and of course the one on the left is Nisiana. Yeah. So it's kind of a the culture there is one of back in the old days, back in the 20th century, about mid 20th century, a lot of towns had what they call blue laws. And what those laws were, they were just laws that pertained strictly to that particular town or city. And usually you found these laws in smaller towns or townships, say, as an example, the town where I have a house in North Carolina, or near where I have a house in North Carolina, they used to have that, and the whole county, for that matter, was a dry county. You could not buy liquor in that county, but you could drive to the big city of Boone, North Carolina, and you could buy liquor. And even the locals didn't. Some of them didn't appreciate you bringing liquor into the county, even though it wasn't against the law. Because one of the things that was funny about that was my stepfather, when he and my mother moved there to that town. One of the first things he did, they put their house up there and all that stuff. One of the first things he did there was built a bar and put it in there. As a matter of fact, you folks probably, some of you know what my bar looks like here. His bar looked very similar to mine because he built my bar. He kind of modeled my bar after his, So and it was quite the talk around the community there that he had a bar, But what was interesting about it was the locals would then frequent his house, frequent my mother and stepfather's house, because they knew they could get a drink, So, and as long as he didn't sell them the drinks, and there's nothing they could do about it, So,
well, if maybe they stopped by and had something to share for like a potluck or something like that, then maybe he treat his guests to a drink.
Yeah, exactly what he did. And as a matter of fact, what was funny about it was they wanted him to run for police chief because he was a deputy sheriff down in Florida, and they wanted him to be a police chief, but he said, no, I don't want to do that. So
yeah.
So
Hybrid brought up something, the concept of a that's the thing. If you're talking about a neighborhood where people tend to know each other, if you get a reputation, because reputation can also play a big part in that. If you get a reputation as somebody who cheats people or steals from them or whatever, scams them, that can really work against you in a tight-knit community. So it kind of depends, I think, on where in the city you're at. If you're somebody who travels around the city and doesn't get too well known, then it might work. But if you're somebody who ends up getting a reputation and people start knowing your face, then doing that kind of thing can really hurt you in the long run. I mean, it might work in the short term. But
they're not going to do business with you, basically.
Yeah, eventually people are going to know, stay away from that guy. He's bad news.
Yeah, that's right. He's going to take your money and run is what he's going to do,
Whereas somebody like Ito, who is known to be trustworthy and that they can count on to do business up front and honestly, that person's going to start getting a lot of clientele coming in.
Particularly his reputation is probably augmented by the fact that he gives them free repairs.
Yeah, somebody like Ito, I actually had in my story, Ito's clinic gets robbed.
Yeah.
Well, the community comes out because he has provided such a important service to everybody in the community and even outside the community. He ends up getting a lot of help from his neighbors trying to help him repair the damage and to hunt down the person who did it.
Yeah, that's right.
Because when they hurt Ito or hurt a business like Ito's that provides such a important service to the community, well, the community gets hurt in turn, and they're going to want to stop that from happening.
Yeah. It kind of makes you wonder that if you had a tight-knit community like that, and particularly in Iron City, where the factory actually controls the bounties, you kind of wonder if a small community would also have their own kind of bounty system, if one of the businesses
very possibly, there could be a little like sub system of that bounties going around. Where people, keep an eye on other people who might do things to hurt the community.
Yeah, back in the old days, in the 18th and 19th century, they had this thing they called tar and feather.
I remember that,
Dip you in tar and put feathers on you and set you loose,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I bet that tar didn't feel good either.
Usually, I think they tended to pour it on them out of buckets, and usually it was very hot tar in order to be able to pour it out of the bucket.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they just throw a bunch of feathers on them, and the person would have to later on, if they got to a safe area, try to peel all that off of them, and that was excruciatingly painful.
Yeah. Okay, Finestro has a kind of a good question here. Could Ito still have friends in Zolom who support him? That's a possibility.
That's a very good question. I'm not sure because I get the impression that Zolom, despite having a higher standard of living, is even more authoritarian and controlled than Iron City.
Yeah, exactly.
To some degree, at least. So there might be people who would be willing to, but it would be very much depending on the circumstances. Like they might go to a certain point to help him out, but beyond that, they probably would not want to piss off the controls of Zolom and risk their own life in the process.
Well, not only that, they could even risk one big, deterrent for them is they don't want to risk deportment,
Getting exiled from Zolom,
because you figure somebody that lives in Zolom that's probably lives a charmed life, kind of like city dwellers here, or any of us in a civilized society, happens upon Zolom.
Ostracized is can be a big problem to somebody, especially when you're relying on your community to be your support system and stuff like that for various things. Getting ostracized from that can be a real big deterrent to screwing people over.
Well, the thing of it is you get a weakling in Zolom that gets deported down to the service in Iron City. That person there is just going to be a target right there.
Yeah.
Folks are going to take advantage of them, and it's going to be, they're going to be at the mercy, of the locals, So, and of course, Iron City is a lot more, it's a lot tougher place to live than Zolom would be. Probably the average person here probably could live in Zolom, certainly they would have to be brought up to snuff on, the technology and stuff like that, because you can't take a city dweller from the 19th century, put them up here in the 21st century and expect them to be completely productive, because they, first of all, wouldn't even know what a computer is. They wouldn't know. I mean, they had very few telephones, and they wouldn't have any clue, what a smartphone was or anything like that.
Yeah.
So they have a big learning curve,
That was one of the things I mentioned when Ito shows the main character in my story a computer system. He's a little surprised at how easily the guy's able to adapt to using it. And as the main character points out to Ito, it's like, it doesn't matter how advanced it is in the back end. An interface is still an interface. So somebody from our time going into Zolom, as long as the interfaces aren't wildly different, would probably be able to adapt fairly easily.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So anyway, but that's what you're going to be contending with. You're going to be contending with this kind of a higher crime rate or crime infested kind of community. And the only thing you got going for you is this. And this is not really,
that's not saying much.
No, you're not really, this is not to protect and serve, kind of like you see on some of the police cars. These guys
to hunt down and serve my own interests.
That's exactly right. I want that bounty, and I'm gonna, I'm not all about protecting the community. I'm about getting that bounty. So
I imagine the bounty hunter types are either people who were desperate enough and had the skills to go into that line of work, or they wanted to try to make a big name for themselves in the business, like the old gunslingers of the old West.
Yeah. Of course, the only problem with that is no matter how good you think you are, there's always somebody better. Yeah, that's right. Somebody can always take you down. Like in Japan, he was kind of the tip top around there, and then Alita, little old bitty 4'11" Alita, beat the crap out of him. And then it ended up slicing his face off. So he's definitely not top of the food chain now, for sure. So, but that's right. These guys aren't there to protect the community and to enforce the laws and stuff like that.
That, I think, would be one of the biggest culture shocks to somebody from our time going into Iron City. There's no 911 to call. So if you end up having a heart attack, or your neighbor has a heart attack or something like that, you're going to be the one to have to try to get them to the hospital yourself, because from what I understand, there are no ambulances.
Yeah.
And there's no police to help you out. I mean, there might be a fire department, because I imagine a fire breaking out in Iron City, kind of a big deal if it's going to, especially if it ends up impacting Iron City's ability to service the factory. Because again, it all goes back to, you know, how can it serve the factory, or how does it impede the factory?
Yeah, that's right.
So there's probably a fire department, but as far as anything else, probably not.
Yeah. And these guys here aren't going to help you.
Nope. Unless you're one of the wealthier types and can pay.
Yeah, and they're going to get, you know, the old quid pro quo type thing. You know, I mean, I'll help you, but it's going to cost you, you know, type thing.
Yeah, like if it were somebody like the Duchess, who's a very wealthy socialite, she can say, well, I want your help with this problem, and here's a big bunch of money for it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the average person's not going to be able to get much help out of them, no.
Yeah. Well, you notice that Vector in the movie, he had those 4 bodyguards that were all holding cattle prods, you know.
Yeah. In the novelization, they actually were armed with machine pistols too.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess
because being that they worked for Vector, and he had such a high standing within the power structure, they were able to get away with having weapons. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or guns, I should say. They already had weapons, but yeah, guns specifically.
Yeah. So I would not exactly call this law enforcement. I would call this...
Actually, I would call it exactly law enforcement, because the only thing they do is enforce the law. If you break the law, they enforce the penalty of the law upon you.
I was going to call it more like law revenge or something. Not revenge, but retaliation or something. But yeah, I guess your point is right. You know, it's not going to be I think a modern day policeman. I don't know if how they would fit into this kind of operation.
Well, that's the thing. If you go by the strict definition of what law enforcement is, according to, I think it was a couple of different court rulings. One of them, I think, might have been a Supreme Court ruling. Police are in no way obligated to protect and serve. That's an optional extra. Their only requirement as being law enforcement is to simply enforce the law. So if you're caught breaking the law, they are required to bring you in. But there was a incident on a subway, and I think it was New York, where a guy intervened in a stabbing in progress, and there were 2 cops in the car next to him, or in the next car, that were watching the stabbing take place. They waited until this Good Samaritan had the situation in control. Then they came in and arrested the guy. Wow. So I imagine it's more like that, where basically it's like, if you're caught, if you break the law, they will enforce the penalty on you. But yeah, they're under no obligation whatsoever to help anybody, unless they're feeling, you know.
Well, they will enforce the law if there's a bounty on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean, if you're caught breaking the law, the factory will issue a bounty marker on you.
Yeah.
And then they come in and collect the bounty, which enforces the penalty of, you know, you breaking the law.
And it's like with Grewishka, even though he had a hand in not murdering all the women, you know, there's no bounty on him. So it's kind of like Clive Lee of the White Hot Palm on the right there said, there's no bounty on this guy, Doc. It's not our problem.
Not our problem, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So,
but yeah, as far as Hybrid's comment there, if you're talking about what I was just referring to in today's law enforcement, well, there are a number of police that do try to do that.
Yeah.
But just based on the way the law enforcement is set up, they're not required to. Yeah. I mean, property and law breaking is prioritized over human life.
Yeah.
But there are some officers, they go in and they want to, you know, try to protect the community.
Well, I would say if a cop kind of surveyed a situation and figured out a particular human, say a person, was about to be killed or something like that, but the law hadn't been broken yet, then they might take action there.
There have been a number of times that's happened. Yeah, there's been a few cops I've talked to who, you know, they ended up in a situation like that. Yeah, it looked like this person's going to try and stab this person or attack them. And so they actually did try to intervene.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, by law, in fact, law enforcement's hands are kind of tied. They're supposed to stop a lawbreaker. Well, somebody's not a lawbreaker until they've broken the law.
Yeah.
So they're kind of reactionary by requirement.
Yeah.
But if somebody is in a car accident or gets mugged or something like that, a number of times they'll, try to render aid in some way.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, don't look to these guys to help you protect you or anything.
Yep.
Because if there's no
Unless
bounty,
it's Alita. Alita, I think, would probably be the only one of the
Yeah.
Hunter Warriors who would actually do anything
Yeah,
to
I
try and
think
help
so.
you out.
Yeah. I got the feeling McTeague might also, although in the case of Alita, I
That
think,
might be only if he knows you're a dog lover.
yeah, that's
If
right.
he knows you're actually a dog lover, he might go out of his way to give you a little bit of help in some cases, in some way.
Did you see that tweet that Angela sent me? I guess everybody on the stream here knows that my dog's got cancer, but he seems to be coping with it. But anyway, and I guess, Angelus was trying to cheer me up or something like that. And he had this meme that he put on there. He had a picture of McTeague holding that little stray, and he says, Creaky loves his dog. I like that. Yeah, that was pretty good. I like that a lot.
Ricky's a dog lover. I like that.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, but once again, don't rely on these guys unless you're going to pay them. Now you can say, look, I want you to be my bodyguard. And I'll pay you X number of dollars or X number of credits a month, provided it's enough for them. Then they might do it. Then
if the price is right, they'll provide services.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, okay. And then, of course, out in the Badlands.
Well, somebody from our time going out there, if they entered Iron City first and just heard the stories about the Badlands from the people living there.
Yeah.
If they're the adventurous sort, they might risk it. But otherwise, they would probably, after hearing the stories out there, they'd probably stick to just staying within Iron City because it certainly sounds a lot safer.
Yeah, to say Iron City is safer than any place is amazing, isn't it? Yeah, for sure.
No problem, hybrid.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's right. Bounty hunters are like mercenaries, for sure. Yeah, they are, because they get paid.
Actually, I think that exactly is like mercenaries, because they go out and perform their function for pay, just like a mercenary performs their function for pay.
Yeah.
And in both cases, it's usually killing people for money.
Yeah. I've started writing a treatment for Alita going into the Badlands, and one of the things about that, one of the I guess underlying premises behind that is that the Badlands itself is extremely dangerous. Of course, Alita going into the Badlands is going to be less dangerous for her than it would be, say, the average human.
Well, that would be because she is also very dangerous herself. And I think that being dangerous allows you to take on dangerous situations.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Vladdy.
Yeah, Vladdy, it's good you joined us, even though it's going to be for a little while because he just got back from work. So, yep. So, Vladdy and Charlie Smith and I are working on that, working on LA Times ad, and it's going pretty good, so far. So we're, I'm still
looking pretty good so far. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm still waiting to hear back from the guy at LA Times. I sent him a kind of a draft. We're not finally done with it, although we're pretty close, I think. But, I sent him hey, here's what we're looking at. Any suggestions on the text, and that kind of stuff. And he sent me back an email. He didn't really have any suggestions on the text, but what he did say was that don't send me the money yet until I get approval from the LA Times management. So we're waiting to see how that goes. So that's right. He's slow. Yeah, that's okay. But he seemed and he says, okay, cool. Yeah, Vladdy, thanks. About updating the GoFundMe page. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. But anyway, he seemed excited, that we're doing this, You know,
Okay.
I didn't get the feeling just seeing his emails that he was particularly Alita Army person, but he knows who Alita is. So I mean, hey, I guess that's a plus, I guess, you know. So yeah. But anyway,
he's just real busy too.
Could be, you know. The logo itself we might consider, yes, you know, that we have to get right past the copyright thing, I guess. And I think in this particular case with the graphic we have, I think we've got the approval of that.
Redesign the logo somehow or something.
Yeah, whatever, or we get their permission to use it and that kind of stuff. I know we had one, I guess Paul Untitled said that we could use one of his, you know, so if we wanted to use one of his.
Okay.
So we just need to have something in writing to say, hey, yeah, this is the artist. They say it's okay. Here's their approval, and that's good to go, I think. So, but I got to wait to hear back from this guy anyway. So I'm probably going to shoot him an email tomorrow, so he'll pick it up on Monday, because we're getting pretty close to when we got to give him the money. You know, we have to give him the money by September 3rd, I think it is, or it could be the 5th. I'm not sure which, but it's going to have to be next week. You know. Vladi, we got to get permission from the artist. Is
there somebody you can talk to about the logo if it is copyrighted?
No, what we've been doing is sending them DMs and stuff like that. You know, and they say, yeah, you can use it. No, you can't. I tagged James Cameron on the one that I wanted to use, although I don't think we're going to use it because it's not the right format for one thing. We could probably make it the right format, but you know, it's not, you know, so, but I haven't heard back, surprise, from him, you know, but, yeah, Hybrid, have a good sleep, man. No problem.
Good night, Hybrid. Take care.
You betcha. So anyway, haben Sie einen guten Schlafen, Hybrid.
Oh, he's in Germany, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. So
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So anyway,
my dad was stationed in Germany.
Where?
I think he was stationed in Berlin. Actually, he watched the Berlin Wall get put up.
Whoa.
He never thought he'd live to see it get taken down too.
Wow.
Yeah, he was in the army for a few years.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad was in Germany during I guess right after the war was over. And I guess it was pretty tough, I guess, over there. He was in the occupation force, you know, so anyway, back to the main topic here. Yeah, the Badlands would be particularly tough for anybody today that was not trained to live in this kind of environment.
Yep.
You know, I think anybody that's just, ich bin eine Berliner, or Finestro, you live in Switzerland. You're not in Berlin.
I was thinking somebody like Bear Grylls, a survivalist, would probably be able to survive out there to some degree, but they would have to know about some of the maybe the unusual dangers that might be left over from the war. Because I imagine there might be some really whacked out stuff hidden out there that they would have to be on the lookout for.
Well, I know in the novelization, you know, remember Tanji said that there's still some radiation out there and stuff like that. So they'd have to be aware of that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was also mentioning when they went to the crashed warship. Mm-hmm. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Tanji. He said, yes, like one of the something about, well, I ain't going for a swim because that ship sitting in that water, there would be all kinds of crap leached out of that ship's systems in that water.
Yeah.
And if it's anything like some of the chemicals I've heard of that NASA's used for their rockets, they've got this one chemical that I think is a component of their rocket fuel, or was at least. If you breathe the fumes of this stuff, it causes a film to grow over your lungs and causes you to suffocate like within minutes.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's some really nasty crap. So if it's anything like that, there's all kinds of weird stuff that could happen to you.
Yeah. So
there might be pockets of, who knows, some kind of leftover nanotech weapon or something like that, that just some real weird and off the wall stuff that's out there that you have to be careful of.
And not to mention there may be bands of outlaws and stuff like
Oh,
that.
bandits, stuff like that were definitely mentioned in the novelization. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, Alita can handle all that stuff, but the average person, particularly on this stream, is not going to be able to survive too well in the Badlands, I think.
I would definitely be, even with the some of the familiarity I've got with camping out in the wilderness, stuff like that, and some of the survival training my dad gave me, I would definitely be staying away from the Badlands.
Yes. And if you did be if you were in the Badlands, you'd want to keep your head down.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Of course, you see Alita, she's just standing there, you know. Nobody's going to mess with her.
Well, that's a different type of Badlands, too. That's the manga Badlands, which was more desert. The Badlands in the novel and the movie
it's more like
is Central American jungle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's kind of like that scene in Predator, you know, when I guess it was Bill Duke's character was talking to Jesse Ventura's character, you know, and he says, and this is reminding me of that what you were saying. He's looking around and he says, buddy, I've seen some badass bush before, but this shit makes Cambodia look like Kansas, where they were. So I imagine that Badlands in the manga was kind of like that. You know, well, no, the Badlands in the manga, that's right, was desert, but yeah, that's right. So anyway, this would be pretty tough to survive in right here, I think. You know,
well, there's also the fact that the Earth in the manga had been beaten the crap out of by a lot more than just an interplanetary war, too.
Yeah, it was a comet that hit it too, wasn't it? Supposed to.
Yeah, I think there was a comet impact or some kind of impact that did some major damage to it and knocked the Earth off kilter.
Yeah.
And there was like an ice age, and there was like a couple of other incidences, I think, like catastrophes. Geological catastrophes of some sorts, cataclysms and stuff.
Yeah.
And the movie version, pretty much all they really seemed to have was just a major interplanetary war and weapons of mass destruction impacting it.
Yeah, that's right. But
which will do plenty of damage anyway.
Yeah, but I think in was a manga or whatever, that one story, I think it was also that comet was supposed to have hit the Earth in 2018. So, yeah, I think it was 2018. So, yeah, we're past that.
Yeah, the timeline was a bit different there.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, yeah, our girl's pretty badass, you know, she can survive in the Badlands. And of course, you know, it's kind of like one of those, I used to have this poster, you know, up in my apartment when I lived down in Florida, you know, it said, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for I am the baddest son of a bitch in the valley. So anyway, that's Alita in this case. So anyway. All righty. Any other? Oh, go ahead, Lee.
Well, I was just going to say, too, it's also her penchant for being a bit of a cold-blooded killer.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a fairly important component, I think, to her being able to survive out there. She's not averse to simply killing somebody if they are a big enough threat. Yeah. And most of us, I mean, I've certainly never killed anybody in my life. So
me neither.
I mean,
that's... Alita is really a dichotomy, isn't she? I mean, you know, you see her in the movie and even in the manga in a lot of places. Now, she has her moments, like I've said many times, but she can be such a sweet person, you know, and just so cute and all that stuff. And then boom, boy.
Very warm, very friendly until that one moment hits.
Yeah, and then holy crap. She's like a whirlwind, you know. So yeah, she's going to be able to survive in the Badlands pretty easily, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember that. I think it was in the manga where, you know, she first meets Figure 4 and they're on that atomic train, you know, and you know, Figure 4 says, "Oh, here's a good-looking girl. I can hit on her or something," you know. So he goes over and tries to meet her and all that, and she says, "Everybody who gets close to me dies," and she puts her finger in the middle of his forehead. You know, so, you know, don't get too close to me. So yeah. Yeah, I think the average person here in, you know, from any kind of civilization in the Badlands, you know, is going to be, they'll be up against it from a survival standpoint for sure.
Oh yeah.
You know? Because you can't just keep your head low all the time. You got to find food and stuff like that. And once you get out and start looking, now you're kind of you're kind of vulnerable at that point.
That's another consideration too. I mean, with the toxicity of that lake that ship was in,
Yes,
there could very well be a certain toxicity level or some sort of contaminant level in all of the water outside of Iron City. It could be the only reason the water inside of Iron City is drinkable or even usable for irrigation is because they've got some kind of seriously industrial strength filtration system or water treatment system.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely have to distill it. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So
at least I would think so, unless it's been long enough that it's actually settled out of the water.
yeah. Of course, in that Badlands there, they don't look like there's a lot of water.
No, there's not much.
Yeah. I always like that picture. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a nice one.
Yeah. All right, Lee, any last thoughts? Did we miss anything or?
Well, read my story. That's about it.
All right. Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna hunt that up because I kept the URL. Let me look that up. I'm gonna put that in the chat.
I would definitely be curious to hear your thoughts on it too. See.
I do want to read it. I mean, I read all of Maxie's, and he just gave me a ration all the time about when you're going to read my story. When you're going to read my story, and then I finally read it all, and now I'm giving him a ration. When are you going to come out with chapter 11, man? Come on, hurry up, let's get with it. You know. I
try not to, but I still end up giving him a little bit of ribbing now and again.
It's you got to.
It's so like so I just posted chapter 23. How's 11 coming?
Yeah. So let's see if I can find it here.
It is a bit like Planet Mars.
Yeah. Yeah, it is actually. Let's see. Where is Lee's fanfic? There it is. Let me copy that guy. Okay, folks, I'm going to put Lee's. I'm going to put the URL or the link for Lee's fanfic in there, and there it is, right there. By all means, read it. The Creek is going to read this. He's going to. Now, in this one, Alita is, of course, certainly a major character, but she's just a participant in it here, right?
She's not the main character, but she does figure into it prominently, mainly because it is only by sheer good fortune that the main character falls in with Alita and Ito that he's even able to survive.
Yeah. Oh, you were a good person to have on the stream then, because that's just kind of what we've been talking about, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy I've got the main character, because the story was partly about what it's like to deal with and live with mental illness. Yeah. The main character is someone who had a small supply of his medication with him that ended up running out 3 months into his stay in Iron City. He actually ended up getting catapulted through time into that area. I think it was 5 or 6 months before Alita was activated. So he was actually in the area before she came along, and then he was there to see her rise through the ranks in Motorball and stuff. Oh, and he approached Doc Ito because he knew he was a doctor and he could maybe help him. Actually, get his meds, right? No, he had no idea who Dr. Ito was. He only ended up in Dr. Ito's shop or clinic because he tried to intervene and stop a murder from happening. And as a result, he himself got seriously wounded. He ended up losing both his legs, one arm, an eye, and was lucky to survive. Yeah. And it was only while he stayed with Ito for a while that Ito, it's mine.
Yeah, Finn, it's Lee's. So read that thing. Creek's reading it.
Ito finds out that his new patient has mental illness, and he ends up trying to cook up some way of helping him deal with it. But
of course Ito would.
Yeah. Like I said, he was profoundly lucky he ended up falling in with Ito and Alita, because well, they're the most kind-hearted people
Yeah.
in the city. So, I mean, if he had, Koyomi actually points out to him, despite him ending up in the situation he was in with no legs and wheelchair bound and all that, he was really lucky. And he was, because if he ended up in any other clinic, they probably would not have done much to take care of him once they found out, because Ito runs into a problem where this guy, possibly because of some interaction between him and the temporal anomaly he went through, cybernetics don't work on him. He ends up wheelchair bound for like 20 chapters because Ito cannot for the life of him figure out why cybernetics aren't working on him.
Yeah.
And if it were anybody else, he probably would have ended up getting tossed in the street.
Yeah, if it had been anybody else, he'd be like Ito could have made him a TR cyborg. So
yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's the thing. Ito actually had briefly considered it, but the guy is lucky he didn't, because as it was, if he had tried to remove his brain and put it into a TR body,
he would have died immediately.
Yeah, he would not have survived.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I got to read this. It sounds great. And looks like the Creek's going to meet him too, 600 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Actually, he's probably around here right now. Maybe I'll go hunt him up. Hey, stay away from the temporal anomaly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we didn't miss anything, did we?
Oh, I actually ended up referring or referencing that one story where Ito in the manga, he runs into that young woman, Carol, because Ito is trying to celebrate Christmas.
Oh! Now I know I got to read this thing.
But yeah, it's because of a something that the guy mentions when Ito is questioning him about, it's like, so where do you come from? Why is this stuff not working on you? And all this, it ends up coming up with finding out that the main character isn't from Iron City or the region surrounding it. So it's the Ito questions him. It's like, did you have a Christmas tree and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And because nobody else knows what Christmas is, Ito finds out this guy knows what Christmas is. And he describes what a Christmas tree looks like. Well, he's not from Zolom. So he's obviously not from Iron City.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, something strange is going on.
Where are you from?
Where are you from?
Yeah. And Finn, you're not the only one in the chat. There are 4 other people besides you. So anyway.
You are just the most talkative.
Yeah, you're the most talkative.
Which is perfectly fine.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we established that in Iron City, as long as someone was able to defend themselves.
I think somebody from an inner city would probably fit right in with Iron City fairly well. Yeah. Because, like I said, it reminded me a lot of the inner city parts of New York or LA, Detroit or Chicago. So somebody from those areas that are gang-ridden, fairly high crime, that kind of thing. Very high levels of poverty, probably wouldn't notice much of a difference, except for all these cyborgs running around.
Yeah. Well, New York
and the giant city that's floating overhead. That would be another big difference. But other than that, I think.
I think any of us could probably survive in Zolom after we got training. We'd have to.
Well, in Zolom, but in Iron City,
it'd be a lot tougher. So
it'd be a bit more of a adjustment period there. And it would also depend on certain aspects, like how much of a social safety net were we relying on to begin with? Because there are no social safety nets in Iron City.
No. But I would say about New York, though, I know it's a lot safer there now than it was back in the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've been to New York many times and have walked the streets. Now, there are certain areas you don't want to go into, obviously, but, just walking up and down 5th and 6th Avenue and these places, I mean, it's perfectly safe, So, I mean.
Well, somebody like me ending up in Iron City, I would hate it severely because I hate cities as it is. I like the countryside, small towns, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you get all the other stuff on top of that. And it's just like, oh my God, I'm in hell.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, Lee, because, you know, my house here in Littleton, you know, is, of course, it's suburbs, you know, but, you know, Littleton's kind of built up. It's not country, you know, it's,
Yeah.
But my house in North Carolina, it's in the Appalachian Mountains, and it is very rural. And I'm able to function in either place, you know. So
yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't mind visiting a city.
Yeah.
I just don't want to live in one.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in places like out in the boonies in Alaska and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess we hit it pretty good. I guess we established that the average person from civilized society right now would have a hard time in Iron City.
It would vary greatly depending on where they're originally from and what sort of skill set they bring.
Yeah.
And how much they depended on the social safety net as well.
Yeah. If they were able to defend themselves and that they were adaptable, yeah, they could make it, you know, but that being able to defend yourself would be a key thing.
Somebody like you, I think, would probably do pretty good. I mean, you seem like somebody who can probably take care of yourself pretty well, and you've probably got some skills that would help you, you know, make a living.
Yeah. Matter of fact, Dan, I need to talk. Dan, I'm threatening to go visit Dan, you know, several times. And he says, you know, if you come and visit me, we're going to spar. And I said, okay, I haven't sparred in 50 years, but I'll spar with you. I'll get in the ring with you on one condition. He says, what's that? And I said, you're going to lift weights with me after that. So, you know, but yeah, that's because Creaky's immortal, he says. Yeah, I'm trying to get some of that immortality to rub off on my dog. We'll see how that works out. So anyway, 8,000-year-old power lifter. Yep, that's me. So anyway, I guess we didn't miss anything. And as you can see there, Alita loves her Uncle Creek. And if you don't believe it, I would, if I was you and you had a problem with that, I would not test her on that, because you see that plasma.
If you got a problem with it, keep it to yourself.
That's right. So anyway, and here's our queen right here. You know, Rosa is she is #1 in Creek's book in terms of being an actor. You know, she's great. She is Alita, you know, and it's so cool.
I had actually seen her in like the Maze Runner or stuff like that, and she'd always catch my eye as someone, that's somebody who's pretty good. I wonder if she's been in other stuff. And then I find out she was the star in Alita. I'm like, wow, she is so much better than I realized.
Yeah. Well, here's what's funny about her and Alita. When I first saw the movie, you know, and of course the credits were running the first time, I said, who the hell is Rosa Salazar? You know, and I thought she was just, I mean, the person, I mean, this is how good, you know, Weta did the character Alita. I thought that was Rosa Salazar. I thought that was her. Except I thought they CGI'd her eyes, obviously, but I thought, well, okay, Rosa Salazar is some child actor or something, you know, or something like that.
Well, that's the thing. It was effectively her, because they basically just modified her face and then mapped her modified face onto her face. Yeah.
Oh, there are several shots in the movie where you can tell it's Rosa. You can definitely tell that, you know. But anyway, she's #1 in Creek's book, Jack, you know.
No, understandable.
Creek also likes our other girl, Elle Lamont. She's real cool too. I like her, you know. Matter of fact, last week, I guess on the Radio Chaos stream, she was one of my cafe maids, you know. We had to pick 5 of them, you know. So anyway, but yeah, I like Elle Lamont too a lot. I've seen her in some other stuff. You know, she was in Machete Kills, I think. Although I didn't realize it was her when I saw her. I mean, I thought, oh wow, that's a nice looking actor there, you know, or something like that, you know. But and then of course I saw her in Alita, and I said, whoa, she looks pretty badass there. You know. And of course she was in Salvage Marines. I watched that. That was real good, you know. So
I caught a few episodes of that. It was pretty good.
Yeah. So anyway, but anyway, that's our queen right there. Now, in terms of the Radio Chaos stream, as you guys probably know, Radio Chaos is not going to be taking a week off. And the next episode is going to be on September 3rd. And
okay, so not one tomorrow.
Yeah, but that Creek has got you covered on that. Now, I'm not doing a stream tomorrow, but what I am doing is one of the Alita live streams that was particularly popular. I'm going to upload it, you know, and I'll upload that one and, you know, and I'll advertise it and stuff like that to premiere at 3 o'clock. But it was one where we were talking about a sequel, you know, a trilogy and a series and merch and stuff like that. And it got a lot of hits on it. So, you know, I think, you know, I'm going to upload that guy, you know, and premiere it at 3 o'clock our time tomorrow. And so if you, and it's a stream, so you can, you know, you put chats in it and stuff like that because it's going to premiere. So if you're, you know, if you're saying, oh crap, man, no Radio Chaos tomorrow, well, there is going to be a stream. Now it's not going to be a live stream. It's going to be, you know, recorded one, but hey, it was a really good stream and we had a lot of fun on that thing, you know, so, you know, tune into that one and I'll make sure I'll even put it, I guess I'll put it down here in the description of this stream in case somebody wants to come back and look at this one later, you know, so.
Unfortunately, I've had to catch all of the Saturday streams on a rerun because I've got, unfortunately, a tabletop role-playing game group that I go to on Saturdays.
Nice.
Around about that time.
What game?
It's World of Darkness.
Yeah, I don't believe I've ever heard of that. Is it kind of like Dungeons and Dragons or?
Not really. It's like Dungeons and Dragons in that it is a role-playing game, but it's set in late 21st century, sort of a cyberpunk sort of world.
Nice.
And everybody's a supernatural creature of some sort.
Cool.
Like werewolf, vampire, that kind of thing.
Oh, you get a bunch of folks around the community there and you all play the game, huh?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's mostly just me and a group of friends. We get together.
Nice. That sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
It typically is.
Yeah.
I've been having some problems with it, mainly just, I think it's because my depression has been killing my interest in a lot of stuff, which it does. I've been losing some of my interest in some of that. But I still go to it because it's fun and I kind of need it.
Well, if you ever need anybody to talk to, Lee, just DM me. So, you know, so we'll.
That's the thing. I've actually looked for you on, what's this thing? This program? Discord. But you never seem to be active on that one.
Yeah, I have a, you know, Angelus gets after me on that too. You know, I have a user ID on, you know, on Discord, but I don't get into it very often. You know, I mean, probably once a month, maybe. You know, so I'll have to start getting back on that thing because a lot of
because I haven't been able to do any of the other social media. I actually tried a number of times to make a Twitter account.
Yeah,
it refuses to allow me. Every time I attempt to do it, it gives me an error and refuses to take any of my information.
Holy crap.
I'm not sure why that is. Apparently Twitter is taking a hatred to me.
Yeah, wow. Well, us Coloradans have got to stick together, even though I'm a Floridian, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm one of these people in North Carolina they hate. So, although
I've actually got family in Florida too.
Oh, what part?
The Panhandle area.
Oh,
in the northern area there.
Pensacola?
Yeah, my mom moved there after my dad passed away, and my brother and his wife are there.
Well, I am a native Pensacolian, so.
Oh, okay.
Yep, was born there and raised there mostly. You know, I grew up some in Los Angeles too, so, you know. But, yeah.
I passed through LA once.
Yeah.
That's as close as I want to get.
Well, I'm not one of them halfback Floridians. I'm one of them Creek Indian Floridians. That's a little different. So anyway, that's the way that one works. So anyway, yeah, I'll get back on Discord and I'll look you up. Yeah, for sure. Because I do have I know Angelus. You on Discord, Gary? You know, no, I have to get back on there, I guess.
Yeah,
so,
the name I'm using on Discord is Vaco, VAHKO.
Oh, kind of like the guy in Riddick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually used the name for a character in one of those MMOs too, so I ended up sticking with it.
All right. Well, I'll get back on Discord and look you up. So cool. And you know, I told you and Do Not Stand By in the Leader Raid we were going to have a, you know, kind of like a little get together here. I've been running into one problem after another. So anyway, and now I got.
That's usually how that goes. Yeah.
Yeah, my dog now has got cancer. You know, so I'm having to kind of keep a close eye on him. You know, and
he said he's doing okay so far, though.
Yeah, I mean, to look at him, you wouldn't know anything was wrong with him. You know, he's,
Yeah.
you know, but
That's the kind of the problem with cancer. Often it can hit in areas
yeah,
that don't become visible, but can have serious impact on the body.
yeah.
So
Well,
one of those ones that's difficult to watch out for if you're not real careful.
yeah. But anyway, I got him on some meds, and he's taking some anti-cancer supplements and stuff like that.
Okay.
So we'll see. I had an oncologist tell me that dogs deal with cancer a lot better than humans do.
Mm.
So I said, okay, you know. But
Yeah.
I had one vet tell me he's not going to be around just for a few more weeks. You know, so we're already past that. So you know, so he's still here, and you can't tell anything's wrong with him. You know, he's pretty old. You know, so he's been slowing down for the last couple of years. But yeah, you know, just to look at him, you can't tell there's anything wrong with him. You know, so
Okay.
so anyway,
No, that's good at least.
we'll just keep him going and doing what he's doing, and we'll see how long he lasts. You know, so
Yeah.
so
Okay.
yeah, Angelus Creaky does love his dog, and I know McTeague likes that. So anyway. Okay, I guess we beat that one up enough. I guess so. I guess why is this image here? Well, that image is there because the Creek likes it, and he's running the stream, obviously. And to paraphrase Gruishka, I'm only here for our girl and the Alita Army. And of course,
As are we all.
We all in the Alita Army are only here for our girl. You know. So I guess the last thing here is the call to action. There's only two of us, but we'll make a go of it. You know. So on my count of 3, we'll do the call to action. That would be 1, 2, 3.
Film those sequels, baby.
Hey, that went out pretty good. All right, we'll see you tomorrow, or not tomorrow. We'll see you next week on the Alita live stream and on the next Radio Chaos. Night, night, and day, day.
Yeah. Take care, guys.
What's up, Alita Army? This is Hot Toys Alita, and I hope you enjoyed this week's Alita livestream. Please join my Uncle Creek, Angelus, and our other guests for next week's show. Remember, I do not stand by in the presence of evil, and film those sequels, baby. See you next time.